obstinate, headstrong girl. I do think I should get the most famous quote right from Pride and Prejudice, because I did absolutely fumble through that quote yesterday. And the quote is, I'm here, it's right here. I had the book there the whole time, but I did what I'm just so bad at quotes. It's, it is a truth universally acknowledged that the man in good fortune is in a want of a wife. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. A single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of. This is a heavy book, this Mansfield Park. Sorry. Last video, I just really fumbled through that quote. And it's, if you're going to call yourself a Jane Austen fan, should get the most famous quote right. So we're going to start off with a bang with that, and my shirt that I got, obstinate, headstrong girl. We're manifesting that for 2025. And that quote made me think of this quote that we just read in Mansfield Park from chapter 1. There certainly are not so many men of large fortune in the world as there are pretty women to deserve them. Kind of related, not related, akin to, made me think of quote by proxy. And I am a fan, I just am not good at quotes. I'm buying my fandom and not. Okay, we've read Pride and Prejudice. Obviously, I think I'm gonna reread them. I mean, not on here, but I think I am in my life. I will be rereading these books. It's like, I do like watching movies twice, more than twice. I rewatch movies a lot. I don't know who's in that category, but I love rewatching movies, and I love watching with the subtitles on. You pick up the first time I watched like all the Harry Potter movies with subtitles on, you're like, oh, there's people talking in the background, and it's like kind of important dialogue. So I love seeing the whispers, what that's all about. I like the subtitles, and I like rewatching movies. I see every Harry Potter movie about once a quarter. Unfortunately, at this time, Harry Potter cannot cure what's going on with me. You can't Harry Potter it away this time around, but Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, that usually has worked for me to kind of sink into a different world. But let's sink into Mansfield Park. Chapter 3. We've acquainted ourselves with all the characters. We have a girl named Fanny Price who, by her aunt's wishes, Mrs. Norris is her aunt, got plucked out of her home and moved to another aunt's house, Lady Bertram, because her mom is having a 9th kid. So they thought they would be very, very generous with themselves and help a niece out. And everybody's been kind of just mean to her. They're like, she doesn't stink, but she's ignorant. And the cousins, the 2 girl cousins, are like, she's stupid. And Mrs. Norris is like, I know, but what are you going to do? And the only person that is giving her anything that is nice and like almost a mentor up until she's older is her older brother Edmund. She's 10 at this point, and he is 17. And he's being really nice to her, and that's really nice to have a mentor through this time of life, is what I think. So here we are. We're all cut up, chapter 3 of Mansfield Park. Never heard of anything about it. First read through, excited to see what happens. The first event of any importance in the family was the death of Mr. Norris. Oh, yes, he was ill. Mrs. Norris was like, you should take in this child. And they were like, okay, do you want to help? And she's like, me help? I couldn't possibly. Mr. Norris is terminally ill, convalescing. He is on hospice. So he's just died. Wow. Which happened when Fanny was about 15 and necessarily introduced alterations and novelties. Mrs. Norris, on quitting the parsonage, removed first to the park. So now she's living in Mansfield Park. And afterwards to a small house of Sir Thomas's in the village, and consoled herself for the loss of her husband by considering that she could do very well without him. She said, you know what, this is actually better. I know too many women who are waiting for their husbands to die. It's really sad. But Mrs. Norris also said that she could not take care of Fanny, and she doesn't have any kids either. So maybe it would be different if she had children. I don't know. Fascinating. She can do fine without him, and for her reduction of income by the evident necessity of stricter economy. Oh yeah, she's very frugal too. The living was hereafter for Edmund, and had his uncle died a few years sooner, it would have been duly given to some friend to hold till he were old enough for orders. But Tom's extravagance had, previous to that event, been so great as to render a different disposal of the next presentation necessary, and the younger brother must help to pay for the pleasures of the elder. Wow. There was another family living actually held for Edmund. Gosh. But though his circumstance had made the arrangement somewhat easier to Sir Thomas's conscience, he could not feel but it to be an act of injustice, and he earnestly tried to impress his eldest son with the same conviction, in the hope of its producing a better effect than anything he had yet been able to say or do. I blush for you, Tom, said he, in the most dignified manner. I blush for the expedient which I am driven on, and I trust I may pity your feelings as a brother on the occasion. You have robbed Edmund for 10, 20, 30 years, perhaps for life, of more than half the income which ought to be his. It may hereafter be in my power, or in yours, I hope it will, to procure him better preferment. But it must not be forgotten that no benefit of that sort would be beyond his natural claims on us, and that nothing can, in fact, be an equivalent for the certain advantage which he is now obliged to forego, through the urgency of your debts. Tom listened with some shame and sorrow, but escaping as quickly as possible, could soon with cheerful selfishness reflect, firstly, that he had not been half so much in debt as some of his friends. You know, I'm actually sitting pretty right now with this debt. It's good to be in debt. Secondly, that his father had made a most tiresome piece of work of it. And thirdly, that the future incumbent, whoever he might be, would in all probability die very soon. On Mr. Norris's death, the presentation became the right of a Dr. Grant, who came consequently to Mansfield, and on proving to be a hearty man of 45, seemed likely to disappoint Mr. Bertram's calculations. But no, he was a short-necked, apoplectic sort of fellow, and plied well with good things, would soon pop off. Oh, man. Apoplectic? Overcome with anger. Oh, like...
Apoplectic.
Apoplectic. Have I heard that word before? I mean, I've heard it before. I simply must write it down in my list of vocabulary words. Is it in here already? No, it is not. It's the first time we've heard apoplectic from Janie, little Janie Austen. Oh, I haven't introduced you guys yet. This go around. So smart, Janie. Apoplectic. Wow. He was simply apoplectic. What does plied mean? Like a plier, like pliable, plied? Okay. Plied well with good things and would soon pop off. Pop off, king. All our pop culture references are actually from Jane Austen, and nobody knew. There's some algorithm in the works that's like, say pop off. And it's trying to promote Jane Austen. Classic. He had a wife about 15 years his junior, but no children, and they entered the neighbourhood with the usual fair report of being very respectable, agreeable people. The time now has come when Sir Thomas expected his sister-in-law to claim her share in their niece, the change in Mrs. Norris's situation and the improvement in Fanny's age seeming not merely to do away any former objection to their living together, but even to give it the most decided eligibility, and his own circumstances were rendered less fair than heretofore by some recent loss on his West India estate. In addition to his eldest son's extravagance, it became not undesirable to himself to be relieved from the expense of her support and the obligation of her future provision. In the fullness of his belief that such a thing must be, he mentioned its probability to his wife, and the first time of the subject's occurring to her again, happening to be when Fanny was present. Oh, that's never good. She calmly observed to her, "So, Fanny, you are going to leave us and live with my sister. How shall you like it?" It's an interesting way to bring that up. Fanny was too much surprised to do more than repeat her aunt's words. "Going to leave you?" "Yes, my dear, why should you be astonished? You have been 5 years with us, and my sister always meant to take you when Mr. Norris died, but you must come up and tack on my patterns all the same." That's a funny is that an expression? Tack on my patterns. Like quilting patterns? Jane Austen. Wow. Lyrics to it. That was lyrics to a song. Somebody put that in there. Nothing. Tackled my patterns. A free Jane Austen quilt pattern. You find so much on the internet. Huh. The news was disagreeable to Fanny, as it had been unexpected. She had never received kindness from her Aunt Norris, and could not love her. "Never received kindness from you? Cannot love you." "I shall be very sorry to go away," said she, with a faltering voice. "Yes, I dare say you will. That's natural enough. I suppose you have had as little to vex you since you came into this house as any creature in the world." "I hope I'm not ungrateful, Aunt," said Fanny modestly. "No, my dear, I hope not. I've always found you a very good girl." "And am I never to live here again?" "Never, my dear. But you are sure of a comfortable home. It can make very little difference to you whether you are in one house or the other." This is a lot of assumption on their part. Just tossing this girl around. Oh, I think that's what happened to Jane Austen. Wasn't she? People were like, can you take care of her? Wow. I see you, Jane. Fanny left the room with a very sorrowful heart. She could not feel the difference to be so small. She could not think of living with her aunt with anything like satisfaction. As soon as she met with Edmund, she told him her distress. "Cousin," said she, "something is going to happen which I do not like at all, and though you have often persuaded me into being reconciled to do things that I disliked at first, you will not be able to do it now. I am going to live entirely with my Aunt Norris." "Indeed?" "Yes, my Aunt Bertram has just told me. It is quite settled. I am to leave Mansfield Park and go to the White House. I suppose as soon as she is removed there." Huh. Well, Fanny, and if the plan were not pleasant to you, I should call it an excellent one." "Oh, cousin, it has everything else in its favour. My aunt is acting like a sensible woman in wishing for you. She's choosing a friend and companion exactly where she ought, and I'm glad her love of money does not interfere. You will be what you ought to be to her. I hope it does not distress you very much, Fanny." "Indeed it does. I cannot like it. I love this house and everything in it. I shall love nothing there. You know how uncomfortable I feel with her." I can say nothing for her manner to you as a child, but it was the same with all us. It's the same with us all, or nearly so. She never knew how to be pleasant to children, but you are now of an age to be treated better. I think she is behaving better already. And when you are her only companion, you must be important to her. I can never be important to anyone. That's a heavy statement. What is to prevent you? Everything. My situation, my foolishness and awkwardness. As to your foolishness and awkwardness, my dear Fanny, believe me, you never have a shadow of either, but in using the words so improperly, there is no reason in the world why you should not be important where you are known. You have a good sense and a good temper, and I am sure you have a grateful heart that could never receive kindness without wishing to return it. I do not know any better qualifications for a friend and companion. Yeah, they really want her to make sure that she feels grateful. I'm sure you have a grateful heart. I'm sure you are grateful. You are too kind, said Fanny, colouring at such praise. How shall I ever thank you as I ought for thinking so well of me? Oh, cousin, if I am to go away, I shall remember your goodness to the last moment of my life. To the very last moment of my poor, pathetic life. Why, indeed, Fanny, I should hope to be remembered at such a distance as the White House. It is like capitalized White House, too. What? Why, obviously they're not in America. White House, Jane Austen. Mansfield Park. Like, is that just a common name for a grand estate, particularly owned by wealthy upper-class families? The White House mentioned in the novel is a grand estate of the Bertram family where the protagonist, Fanny Price, lives. Huh. The White House represents a world of wealth and privilege. Okay. Fascinating. Versus White House America. Huh. Fascinating. And the White House, well, duh. While the White House is a real, okay, sure. I just want to know if there's like a, was that a common thing to call White Houses? And that's why they called it, what's the history of the name of the White House of America? I'm going to write some topics down because I did look up clergymen and that looked like interesting. And then White House. We're going to dig into those and I will report back. You speak as if you're going 200 miles off instead of only across the park. But you will belong to us almost as much as ever. The two families will be meeting every day in the year. The only difference will be that, living with your aunt, you will necessarily be brought forward as you ought to be. Here there are too many whom you can hide behind, but with her you'll be forced to speak for yourself. Oh, I do not say so. I must say it. And say it with pleasure. Mrs. Norris is much better fitted than my mother for having the charge of you now. She's of a temper to do a great deal for anybody she interests herself about, and she will force you to do justice to your natural powers. It's like they're going to Hogwarts. It's like they're going to some sort of magic camp. Mrs. Norris is best suited to bring her powers out. That's where my brain goes. Her magical powers. Fanny sighed and said, I cannot see things as you do, but I ought to believe you to be right rather than myself, and I am very much obliged to you for trying to reconcile me to what must be. If I could suppose my aunt really to care for me, it would be delightful to feel myself of consequence to anybody. God, that's sad. Thank you for thinking for me. Oh, gosh. Feel myself of consequence to anybody. Little Debbie Downer moment for Fanny. Here, I know I am of none, and yet I love the place so well. The place, Fanny, is what you will not quit, though you will quit the house. You will have as free a command of the park and gardens as ever. Even your constant little heart need not take fright at such a nominal change. You will have the same walks to frequent, the same library to choose from, the same people to look at, and the same horse to ride. Your little heart. Very true, yes, dear old grey pony. Ah, cousin, when I remember how much I used to dread riding, what terrors it gave me to hear it talked of as likely to do me good. Oh, how I have trembled at my uncle's opening his lips if horses were talked of. And then think of the kind pains you took to reason and persuade me out of my fears, and convince me that I should like it after a little while, and feel how right you proved to be. I'm inclined to hope you may always prophesy as well. And I'm quite convinced that your being with Mrs. Norris will be as good for your mind as riding has been for your health, and as much your ultimate happiness too. Great. So they ended their discourse, which, for any very appropriate service it could render Fanny, might as well have been spared, for Mrs. Norris had not the smallest intention of taking her. Oh. It had never occurred to her on the present occasion, but a thing to be carefully avoided. To prevent its being expected, she had fixed on the smallest habitation which could rank as genteel among the buildings of Mansfield parish, the White House being only just large enough to receive her and her servants, and allow a spare room for a friend, of which she made a very particular point. The spare rooms at the parsonage had never been wanted, but the absolute necessity of a spare room for a friend was now never forgotten. Not all her precautions, however, could save her from being suspected of something better, or perhaps her very display of the importance of the spare room might have misled Sir Thomas to suppose it really was intended for Fanny. Wow! Lady Bertram soon brought the matter to a certainty by carelessly observing to Mrs. Norris, "I think, sister, we need not keep Miss Lee any longer when Fanny goes to live with you." She has this way of bringing things up in a really odd, forceful way. Presumption, pretense of like, so when you move out, hope you like your new place because you're moving out, right? What a way to bring things up. Mrs. Norris almost started. "Live with me, dear Lady Bertram? What do you mean?" "Is she not to live with you? I thought you had settled it with Sir Thomas." "Me? Never. I never spoke a syllable about it to Sir Thomas, nor he to me. Fanny live with me, the last thing in the world for me to think of, or for anybody to wish that really knows us both. Good heaven, what could I do with Fanny? Me, a poor helpless, forlorn widow, unfit for anything, my spirits quite broke down. What could I do with a girl at her time of life? A girl of 15, the very age of all others to need most attention and care, and put the cheerfulest spirit to the test? Sure, Sir Thomas could not seriously expect such a thing. Sir Thomas is too much my friend. Nobody that wishes me well, I am sure, would propose it. How came Sir Thomas to speak to you about it?" "Indeed, I do not know. I suppose he thought it best." "But what did he say? He could not say he wished me to take Fanny. I am sure in his heart he could not wish me to do it." "No, he only said that he thought it very likely, and I thought so too. We both thought it would be a comfort to you. But if you do not like it, there is no more to be said. She is no encumbrance here." "Dear sister, if you consider my unhappy state, how can you be any comfort to me? How can she be any comfort to me? Here I am, a poor desolate widow, deprived of the best of husbands, my health gone in attending and nursing him. Caregiving is tough. Caregiving is tough, I will give that to Mrs. Norris. That's true. I don't know how much she did of it, but it also feels like Mrs. Norris keeps, like, exaggerating everything that she's been through, if I'm reading this right. It's the best he was the best husband in the world, and I'm absolutely forlorn and destitute from this happening. At first it was just a forlorn widow, and now it's like, poor desolate widow, deprived of the best of husbands. My health gone into tending and nursing him. My spirits still worse. All my peace in this world destroyed. With hardly enough to support me in the rank of a gentlewoman, and enable me to live so as not to disgrace the memory of the dear departed. What possible comfort could I have in taking such a charge upon me as Fanny? If I could wish it for my own sake, I would not do so unjust a thing by the poor girl. She is in good hands, and sure of doing well. I must struggle through my sorrows and difficulties as I can. Then you will not mind living by yourself quite alone? Lady Bertram, I do not complain. I know I cannot live as I have done, but I must retrench where I can, and learn to be a better manager. I have been a liberal housekeeper enough, but I shall not be ashamed to practice economy now. My situation is as much altered as my income. A great many things were due from poor Mr. Norris, a clergyman of the parish, that cannot be expected from me. It is unknown how much was consumed in our kitchen by odd comers and goers. At the White House, matters must be better looked after. I must live within my income, or I shall be miserable, and I own it would give me great satisfaction to be able to do rather more, to lay by a little at the end of the year. I dare say you will. You always do, don't you? My object, Lady Bertram, is to be of use to those that come after me. It is for your children's good that I wish to be richer. I have nobody else to care for, but I should be very glad to think I could leave a little trifle among them worth their having. So you don't want to do anything physically for them, just give them money. Okay. You are very good, but do not trouble yourself about them. They are sure of being well provided for. Sir Thomas will take care of that. Why, you know, Sir Thomas's means will be rather straitened if the Antigua estate is to make such poor returns. Oh, that will soon be settled. Sir Thomas has been writing about it, I know. Well, Lady Bertram, said Mrs. Norris, moving to go, I can only say that my sole desire is to be used to your family, and so if Sir Thomas should ever speak again about my taking Fanny, you will be able to say that my health and spirits put it quite out of question. Besides that, I really should not have a bed to give her, for I must keep a spare room for a friend. Wow. Lady Bertram repeated enough of this conversation to her husband to convince him how much he had mistaken his sister-in-law's views. And she was, from that moment, perfectly safe from all expectation, or the slightest allusion to it from him. He could not but wonder at her refusing to do anything for a niece whom she had been so forward to adopt. Right. But as she took early care to make him, as well as Lady Bertram, understand whatever she possessed was designed for their family, he soon grew reconciled to a distinction which, at the same time that it was advantageous and complimentary to them, would enable him better to provide for Fanny himself. Fanny soon learnt how unnecessary had been her fears of removal, and her spontaneous, untaught felicity on the discovery conveyed some consolation to Edmund for his disappointment in what he had expected to be so essentially serviceable to her. Mrs. Norris took possession of the White House. The Grants arrived at the parsonage. The Grants. And these events over, everything at Mansfield went on for some time as usual. The Grants, showing disposition to be friendly and sociable, gave great satisfaction in the main among their new acquaintance. They had their faults, and Mrs. Norris soon found them out. The doctor was very fond of eating, and would have a good dinner every day, and Mrs. Grant, instead of contriving to gratify him a little expense, gave her cook as high wages as they did at Mansfield Park, and was scarcely ever seen in her offices. Mrs. Norris could not speak with any temper of such grievances, nor of the quantity of butter and eggs that were regularly consumed in the house. Nobody loved plenty and hospitable. No. Nobody loved plenty and hospitality. Whoa. Nobody loved plenty and hospitality more than herself. Nobody more hated pitiful doings. The parsonage, she believed, had never been wanting in comforts of any sort, had never borne a bad character in her time. But this was a way of going on that she could not understand. A fine lady in a country parsonage was quite out of place. Her storeroom, she thought, might have been good enough for Mrs. Grant to go into. Inquire where she could not find out that Mrs. Grant had ever more than £5,000. Lady Bertram listened without much interest to this sort of invective. She could not enter into the wrongs of an economist, but she felt all the inquiries of beauty in Mrs. Grant's being so well settled in life without being handsome, and expressed her astonishment on that point almost as often, though not so diffusely as Mrs. Norris discussed the other. These opinions had been hardly canvassed a year before another event arose of such importance in the family as might fairly claim some place in the thoughts and conversations of the ladies. Sir Thomas found it expedient to go to Antigua himself for the better arrangements of his affairs, and he took his eldest son with him in the hope of detaching him from some bad connections at home. They left England with the probability of being nearly a 12-month absent. The necessity of the measure in a pecuniary light, and the hope of its utility to his son, reconciled Sir Thomas to the effort of quitting the rest of his family and leaving his daughters to the direction of others as their present most interesting time of life. He could not think Lady Bertram quite equal to supply his place with them, or rather, to perform what should have been her own. But in Mrs. Norris's watchful attention and in Edmund's judgment, he had sufficient confidence to make him go without fears of their conduct. Lady Bertram did not at all like to have her husband leave her, but she was not disturbed by any alarm for his safety or solicitude for his comfort, being one of those persons who think nothing can be dangerous or difficult or fatiguing to anybody but themselves. The Miss Bertrams were much to be pitied on the occasion, not for their sorrow, but for their want of it. Their father was no object of love to them. He had never seemed the friend of their pleasures, and his absence was unhappily most welcome. These Miss Bertrams sound awful, huh? They were relieved by it from all restraints, and without aiming at one gratification that would probably have been forbidden by Sir Thomas, they felt themselves immediately at their own disposal, and to have every indulgence within their reach. Fanny's relief and her consciousness of it were quite equal to her cousin's, but a more tender nature suggested that her feelings were ungrateful, and she really grieved because she could not grieve. Sir Thomas, who had done so much for her and her brothers, and who has gone perhaps never to return, that she should see him go without a tear. It was a shameful insensibility. He had said to her, moreover, on the very last morning, that he hoped she might see William again in the course of the ensuing winter, and had charged her to write and invite him to Mansfield as soon as the squadron to which he belonged should be known to be in England. This was so thoughtful and kind, and would he only have smiled upon her and called her my dear Fanny while he said it, every form of frown or coldness might have been forgotten. But he had ended his speech in a way to sink her in sad mortification by adding, "If William does come to Mansfield, I hope you may be able to convince him that the many years which have passed since you parted have not been spent on your side entirely without improvement, though I fear he must find his sister at 16 in some respects too much like his sister at 10. Wow. She cried bitterly over this reflection when her uncle was gone, and her cousins, on seeing her with red eyes, set her down as a hypocrite. Wow. This is quite the complex novel so far. So many things going on emotionally, like people don't care that their father's leaving, write to William, but you're probably not different than you were at 10 and you're 16. They're terrible. This is heavy. This is a heavy novel, huh? I'm waiting for the, like, comedic relief, but the only relief really has been Edmund being nice to her, and now Edmund's leaving. So, happy reading. We're learning so much about Jane Austen, and we're going to continue on. Happy reading, and ta-ta. See you next time for Chapter 4 of Mansfield Park.